Genuine philosophizing requires, properly speaking, Richtig, um, ultimate freedom. So we have an example of this which is relatively familiar in the so-called autonomy concept in Kant, and Heidegger somehow identifies this with this much twisted and misused notion of authenticity. One can say it is correct, although one must add upon the correctness the Lichtung, or the clearing, the opening that Heidegger is trying to induce, for instance, by way of a specific example, which is not just any example, but at the same time not everything. Was heißt denken? What is thinking? The what is thinking essay. I think I always mess this up, but it begins with something like, what is thought worthy in this most thought provoking time is most of all that we are not yet thinking. So this gold rather than pyrite, this genuine rather than simply absorbed in the accident of the opinions of our generation, this genuine spontaneity is meant to allow for reason, or the essence of the human being, that out of which we are discover the why, or the goal, or the telos, or the direction of our natural state, just as a stone, I suppose, sitting on the earth has reached its natural state. If it hasn't reached the earth, if something is obstructing it, it's then somehow struggling to reach the earth, but not reaching the earth. So far as one would find, like the stone being on the ground, its complete state according to the Aristotelian thinking. So of course we have gravity is said in contradistinction to levity in Aristotelian thinking, and stones are supposed to go down, and fire and helium is supposed to go up. Let's say maybe I'm not sure what all the examples Aristotle gives on, but let's say fire. But in any case, if it, under the view that things have a right place, then in the same way the human being in total freedom should philosophize, and this total freedom is analogous in the space of the whole of Dasein, which is, as it were, solipsistic existence, which at the same time is immediately prompted to admit the existence of others and the existence of, let's say, at the same time that objects sitting behind me, which I can't now perceive, exist. We have a kind of pistis, or reliance on that, in a Platonic sense. So in this correctness of the transfer of this idea, historically present in the tradition and still present in say curtailed sense in the modern sciences, where they only pertain to the so-called facts, which is to say the exclusion of the good, the true, and the beautiful, or the quote-unquote values from knowledge. But our essence still drives us to at least the so-called facts when we accept the simulus fact value distinction. And in that we can still see something of the force of the, let's say, the reliance, or taking for granted that there must be a right answer to the questions on the Dike, or justice, and the Kelon, or the beautiful, or the beautiful, which is the things we freely favor, give unconstrained favor towards, and the true as well, aletheia, as Heidegger interprets it as this unveiled or unconcealedness. Um, so it seems that we must, rather than do what Heidegger radically um, depreciates, which is the history of the present, which is ordinary history and history books, when we think of um, this notion of autonomy, we must step into history of Dasein, history of being proper, and see how this move, something that was inherited, that was there, is then moved away from. Just as if one looks and sees that one gives all the answers that one's fellows in one's generation gives, has all the opinions, all the docs of one's generations due to a particular, as it were, accidental situation. That's Das Man. That's an example of how you can see how much you're in Das Man and how much you're broken away from it, with the added complication that you might go back to those standard views consciously and having wrestled with them. But in this case, we're looking at, in a certain sense, the very possibility whether philosophy, in the end of philosophy, can continue to have a history, and the history of being can remain um, within the flesh of that body, or whether the body must die and philosophy will be utterly forgotten.